Let's speak about Tshwane a little bit. Celia Brain says you don't answer his phone calls.
Oh.
You blew taking the mayor.
He seems a little bit personalizing this issue and taking it a bit upset. And let me give you the context because it's a bit of a human story here rather than a political strategy. We did chat a little bit over WhatsApp, and the idea was to have a meeting. And then I had a incident with my eye where I had to go for surgery, and I was out for a few days. And as I was recovering, I started reading media reports about my lack of replying to him. But when you realize you're dealing with a person who is going to publicly put out there what you are talking with in private, what confidence can I have that engaging this individual is going to serve any particular purpose? And it's part of a broader subject about the DA and coalition, because I think with the greatest of respect, there's a lot of, listeners in this kind of environment who I think, have got their blinkers on and their blind spots when it comes to the DA. Because let's look at a DA where ActionSA can't work with them anymore. The Freedom Front increasingly can't work with them anymore. The Patriotic Alliance can't work with them anymore. We're getting phone calls from national leaders in the ANC saying, how on earth do you do this? Because we can't do it anymore. At some point, DA supporters might have to open their eyes to the possibility that it's not everybody else. It might, in fact, be them. And in that regard, I wanted to share a few anecdotes with you because
Sure.
this isn't some vague, nondescript, wafty kind of concept. These are real issues. In the city of Tshwane, there was the 4-month strike last year, which brought service delivery to its knees, which
I
was
remember that.
precipitated by the city of Tshwane, the government of which we were a part, refusing to pay 2 out of 3 years of legally agreed wage increase agreements, which have the effect of law and collective bargaining. Now, we're part of this government. We went through every appeal process within our coalition structure to say you can't do that legally, or even if you just say financially, because now you have a contingent liability of more than 1 billion rand owing to municipal workers, which can become due the moment the Labour Appeals Court looks at this and says, what on earth are you doing? And we form part of this government. And to this day, every offer that's been taken back to the union since then has not even been consulted with ActionSA, much less to our knowledge of what it was. And that's how we get treated as a coalition partner. So when Celia's cries crocodile tears about the fact that I don't respond to his WhatsApps, my heart is not pumping lumpy custard, because actually he's proven time and time again that actually the DA's idea of a coalition is that they govern and we just give them a majority.
Where are matters now as it stands? Last I heard, the ANC needed to make a decision. I saw reports saying that it might have made a decision to have a local unit situation in Tshwane. From where ActionSA sits, where are things?
Well, you're probably going to roll your eyes a bit with me when I tell you this, but, we may be as in the dark as you are, because this is all playing out in the ANC. The ANC nationally is pushing them towards a deal with the DA. The ANC provincially, I gather, is resisting that. We don't know how it's going to play out. But, Tshidi, when we started this process, we were always quite clear that our resolution at that point in our Senate was to get out of this coalition once we had completed our review. In other words, the performance of this government means we need to indemnify ourselves from any further involvement in this particular government. And we were always mindful that the DA and the ANC might cook up a deal, because you've got to remember this whole thing started with the DA and the ANC trying to translate GNU, GPU down to a GLU.
Yes, it meant to be all the way down to GLU.
It only failed because it failed in Gauteng province. And the DA leaders have repeatedly been on record to say that they are going to form an arrangement with the ANC in these metros in Gauteng. So what I find astonishing with the shrill nature of DA supporters who now want to scream blue murder, if you'll forgive the expression, is really all we're doing is what their party was planning to do as well. It's amazing how it's acceptable.
Surprising. Yeah, because they are quite upset and very vocal about how they feel about the way ActionSA is carrying itself. But if you look at it, you're like, but the DA is also in talks. I think the argument they try and make is that somebody entered talks before the other, and the assumption is you started seeking relationship outside of the agreement, that they sought reassurance that the coalition was intact in Tshwane, which they claim to have received, yet there were reports. I can tell you for free. I said it long ago that that mayor should not feel comfortable, that Celia Brink should not feel comfortable. I saw that coming a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, I think the point is this. right after the May 29 elections. I mean, here's some insights that you might not have. But the very first meeting of the multi-party charter took place 3 days after the May 29 elections. You hear it first with Tshidi Madia. And at that meeting, we were supposed to talk about pathways to building majorities, where there actually were pathways in places like Gauteng and other areas. And what was very clear when we entered that meeting is that the discussion between the DA, the IFP, the Freedom Front, had been with the ANC already. And effectively, we were attending the second meeting, which was a formality. The meeting with the other group had already taken place, and they had made their decision to go in with the ANC. Immediately after that, the DA were publicly talking about bringing the ANC into these coalitions in Tshwane, Johannesburg, and elsewhere, and kicking us out, which is fine. That's absolutely their right. This isn't personal. But at the end of the day, that is why I find it hard for those shrill types to sit and run and scream about how the DA is being treated in this process, when in fact the DA was doing exactly the same to us in the first place.